The arena was already alive with sound, the kind of restless noise that comes from thousands of people waiting to be entertained. Floodlights burned white over the squared ring, throwing shadows against the rafters. Cameras whirred and pivoted on their cranes, catching every twitch, every flicker of movement, feeding the energy to millions watching at home. The air carried the mixed scent of sweat, plastic cups of beer, and the faint chemical bite of pyrotechnics already fired during the opening show. Then John Cena walked through the curtain. His music blared, his presence filling the space, as if the entire night had been written just for him. The crowd roared, not out of surprise, but recognition. He climbed into the ring, chest bare, arms flexed, the living embodiment of a man who'd built his career on being untouchable. He paced once, twice, letting the noise peak, before raising the microphone to his lips. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice booming across the arena, "let's talk about the man you used to fear. The one the internet turned into a joke, because reality had already left him behind. The truth? The days when Chuck Norris was scary ended before the memes even started. The words landed like a punch thrown not at one man, but at an entire era. Laughter tore through the stands. Some fans clapped, cheering the audacity. Others hissed, the insult cutting too deep, a line they hadn't expected him to cross. The split in the crowd gave the moment its edge. Humor tangled with unease, a joke that didn't feel entirely like a joke. Cena smiled, sensing the reaction, feeding off it. He strutted to the ropes, leaning forward as if daring anyone to disagree. "Come on," he pressed. "Don't act surprised. You all know it. Legends fade. And Norris? He's a museum piece. Good for nostalgia, but nothing more." The cameras cut suddenly, searching the seats, not the screaming fans in painted t-shirts or the drunk men waving their banners, but a still figure in the middle rows. Chuck Norris. No spotlight framed him, no announcer called his name. He sat quietly among the crowd, denim jacket, trimmed beard, hands folded in his lap. While the arena reacted in chaos, his face barely moved. No smile, no grimace. Only stillness. The image filled the massive screen above the ring. For a moment, the laughter faltered. The arena wasn't silent. Too many people, too much adrenaline. But the sound dipped, like a wave pulling back before it crashes. Norris didn't flinch. His eyes stayed locked on Cena. Calm, steady, cold. That silence carried more weight than any comeback could. Cena tilted his head, pretending not to care, but his pacing grew sharper, more erratic. He gestured to the screen. "See? Even he knows it. Look at him, too tired to even stand, too careful to even try. Legends don't sit quietly in the cheap seats. Legends don't hide when the world has moved on." The crowd's reaction twisted again. Half laughs, half boos. The tension thickened. The arena itself became the third participant, its shifting energy driving the moment forward. But Norris remained motionless. The cameras lingered on his face, capturing the faint tightening of his jaw, the absolute absence of emotion in his eyes. It wasn't weakness. It was something else, something the audience couldn't yet name. His silence became a presence, heavy enough to drag every sound down with it. And the longer he said nothing, the more powerful that nothing became. Children in the stands stopped cheering to watch. A man with a beer halfway to his lips froze mid-drink. Even the commentary team in their headsets trailed off, their words choking in the atmosphere Norris had created without moving a muscle. Cena lifted his chin, pushing harder. "What's the matter, Chuck? Cat got your tongue? Or are you afraid everyone's going to see you for what you are? Old? Broken? Finished? Gasps shot through the audience. Not cheers, not boos, gasps. It wasn't the insult itself, it was the balance tipping, the cruelty becoming sharper than the humor, the show blurring with something too real. And still, Norris did not answer. The screen showed him breathing once, slow, controlled. His eyes narrowed the smallest degree. That was all. And somehow, that was enough. The crowd, volatile and unpredictable, began to turn. Boos rose against the laughter, scattered but growing. The energy of the night had shifted, not fully yet, but enough for everyone to feel it. Cena might have had the microphone, the lights, and the stage, but Norris had the silence, and the silence was louder. For the first time all night, the arena didn't sound like a celebration. It sounded like judgment. Just wondering, where are you watching from? Write it down, bellow. The pockets of laughter still linger, but they don't spread the way Cena wants. It's as if the arena has tasted the sound of its own cruelty and isn't sure it likes it. He paces hard lines into the mat, shoulders rolling, jaw set, microphone gripped too tight. The screen above him still shows Chuck in his seat, unmoving, which only sharpens the contrast. "You came here for a legend," Cena calls out, his voice cracking with forced authority. "What you got is a grandfather cameo. Admit it, he's a relic." Time already beat him. The words are meant as a knockout line. Instead, they land crooked. Cheers flare in one corner, boos in another. And then comes the third reaction. Silence, spreading from the rafters like fog. The space feels unstable, as if the building itself is holding its breath. Cena senses the wobble. He doubles down. "Look at him!" he shouts, stabbing a finger at the screen. He won't even stand. He knows what happens when yesterday tries to step into today. The camera cuts to Chuck again. No spotlight, no fanfare. Just denim, folded arms, and eyes steady as stone. The crowd studies him, waiting for a twitch of emotion. All they see is a jaw flexing once, a single measured breath. "Say something," Cena demands, his voice echoing off steel beams. "Or are you afraid the internet memes did a better job than you ever could?" The arena reacts like a jury, uneasy with the prosecutor's tone. Shifting, murmuring, not convinced. A father lowers his son from his shoulders. Two young women stop filming. Even the commentators choke on their words, their usual bravado smothered by the weight in the air. And then Chuck moves. Slowly, deliberately, he rises from his seat. The camera follows as if dragged, zooming to catch every inch of the denim jacket, every crease in his face. He doesn't wave, doesn't gesture, doesn't smile. He just stands there, visible now to everyone without needing the screen. When the room quiets, he speaks. His voice isn't loud, but it carries, the kind of tone that comes from speaking truths people want to hear. "Sometimes real strength isn't in muscle," he says, "it's in character." The sentence doesn't shout. It lands. The audience tilts, faces softening, hands lowering mid-clap. It's too plain to be entertainment, too honest to be dismissed. A woman near the aisle stares at him with her mouth half open. Someone in the balcony nods, almost unconsciously. Cena laughs, a sharp bark, waving his arms. Character. That's what you bring to a fight now? Quotes? This isn't a philosophy seminar. This is a ring. And in the ring, only power matters, but his pacing falters. The crowd hears it. They've been listening to his bravado all night, and now the seams show. The arena cools by a degree. Chuck doesn't add theatrics. He simply breathes, then says, even quieter, "Muscle fades. Character doesn't." That's why people remember. The words echo through the space. The crowd receives them like a mirror held up to its own face. The split becomes visible. Those who still cheer for Cena's dominance, and those who find themselves shifting toward silence, shame, or something like reverence. The director in the truck whispers into a headset, "Stay wide. Don't cut." Because cutting away would feel dishonest, security guards glance at each other, sensing tension they can't categorize. Cena plants himself in the center of the ring, posture tight, as if bracing against the intangible. He points to the mat, needing to ground the moment in something physical. "This is where danger lives," he says, voice lower now, like an animal cornered. Chuck's eyes narrow just slightly. The cameras catch it. It's not a smile. It's recognition. He steps into the aisle, moving closer, not rushing, not aggressive, just inevitable. The crowd parts without being asked. The building hums with divided energy. Cena senses control slipping and tries humor again. "Need help with the stairs, old man? Don't want your hip replacement on my conscience." He forces the laugh himself, but the audience doesn't join him. The joke collapses in the air, brittle and desperate. Chuck reaches the steel railing. He doesn't cross it. He doesn't have to. Standing just behind the barrier, he looks directly into the ring. His tone is calm, the microphone almost unnecessary. "You're strong," he says, "but you don't know yet if you're brave." Strength without control is just noise. Control without character is empty. It's not flashy. It's not scripted. And that's why it cuts. The words ripple outward, front rows first, then the rafters, bouncing off concrete, reshaping themselves as they echo back. People who wanted to chant Cena's name find their mouths closed. People who wanted to boo forget the rhythm. What's left is a hum of quiet approval, heavier than any chant. Cena circles, jaw tight. He slaps the top rope, making it vibrate. "If you've got something left," he spits, "prove it. Otherwise, sit down and let the present keep moving." The challenge lands like a thrown gauntlet. The crowd hears it, sharp and undeniable. They murmur, then chant, not uniform, but insistent. "Fight! Fight! Fight!" Chuck doesn't react. His chin dips, not as a bow, but as patience embodied. "You asked me to speak," he replies. "I did." He gestures faintly toward the crowd, pulling them into his words. They'll decide who belongs to the past. The arena holds the image. Cena in the ring, loud, restless. Chuck outside it, quiet, unmoving. And the crowd, the third character, holding its breath like a jury waiting for the final piece of evidence. And for the first time all night, it isn't clear who owns the moment. Cena's challenge doesn't drift into the air. It slams, deliberate, calculated, the kind of line meant to end arguments. "Prove it. Get in here. Show them you're not a museum exhibit." The words bounce off rafters and stick to the crowd. For a breath, nothing. Then the chant begins, rough and uneven. "Fight! Fight!" It isn't unified yet. It sounds like a mob deciding what kind of mob it wants to be. Chuck doesn't flinch. He stands steady, one hand resting on the barrier. The camera closes on his face. No smile, no sneer, only calm. Too calm for the noise around him. He checks the aisle with a glance, the way a man checks weather before stepping out the door. Cena paces like a caged animal, rolling his shoulders, gesturing to the mat. "Come on! Let the present meet the past." The audience parts without instructions. Seats fold, knees draw back, phones tilt upward. An aisle forms by instinct alone, a concrete river cutting through bodies. Chuck steps into it. His boots scrape, rubber on grit. Each step lands heavy enough for microphones to catch. The noise mutates as he walks. Chants swell, then falter, giving way to stretches of eerie quiet. Some fans scream encouragement, others whisper, some simply gape. The contradictions swirl into a single pressure you can feel in your chest. Up close, the age in Chuck is real. Knees braced before stairs, shoulders carrying years. But none of it reads as frailty. He walks with the steadiness of a man who has nothing left to prove, and yet is willing to prove it anyway. Security doesn't move. They glance at each other, then at the cameras, and stand still. Everyone seems to know this isn't theirs to interrupt. The last 10 feet are the loudest. Fans lean into strangers, whispering, "He's actually doing it." A teenager fumbles his phone, nearly dropping it over the rail. Cena holds center ring, bouncing in place, feeding off the energy and trying to keep control of it. Chuck reaches the barrier. He doesn't leap it, doesn't play to the cameras. One hand on steel, one boot on the rung, a twist of hips, he's over. He lands with the sound of leather on canvas, knees absorbing the drop without strain. The crowd inhales. Cena laughs too loudly, too quick. "Careful! You break a hip. I won't sign the cast." No one laughs with him. Chuck walks toward the center, not fast, not slow, just straight. Cena circles, forcing motion, but Chuck doesn't chase. He stops at arm's length, leaving a clean lane between them. On the screen, both faces fill the shot. Cena, glowing with sweat and adrenaline. Chuck, shadowed, unreadable. The commentary desk is silent. Words would shrink the moment. The chant returns, louder now, pulsing, unified. "Fight! Fight!" It doesn't sound bloodthirsty anymore. It sounds like judgment. Cena raises the mic again, slower this time, as if he feels the shift. "You sure about this?" he asks, and the question comes out wrong. Less mockery, more doubt. He tries to fix it, louder. Because once it starts, nostalgia ends. Chuck doesn't take the mic. He doesn't raise his voice. "You wanted me to stand," he says. "I'm standing." The line lands heavier than any insult. People in the upper deck clap, short and sharp. Others hush them, not wanting to break the tension. The sound swells, then dies, leaving the silence intact. A referee slides under the bottom rope, almost embarrassed to be there, hands loose, eyes darting. He's not calling a match yet, just existing in case the story takes him in. The building shifts into its strangest state. Thousands of people, and no noise but breath. You hear the ropes creak, the faint squeak of shoes on canvas, the hum of lights overhead. Cena's chest rises too quickly. Chuck's doesn't move at all. The two men stand a yard apart, eyes locked. It isn't hate. It's an understanding written in silence. The camera zooms close enough to count wrinkles and scars. In the crowd, a boy whispers, "Dad?" but gets no answer. A woman who booed earlier presses her hands together unconsciously, as if praying. Everything is ready. Cameras, lights, the crowd leaning forward in unison. But nothing has begun. And then the arena explodes, not because of action, but because of stillness. The two men hold the moment, refusing to move first, and the crowd breaks, screaming as though something has already happened. The tension sharpens into a cliff's edge. One breath. 2. 3. Something has to happen next. The bell hasn't rung, yet the fight is already underway. Not with fists or kicks, but with posture, breath, and the way each man chooses to claim space. Cena bounces on the balls of his feet, flexing his arms, turning to the audience to show them the thickness of his biceps. He smirks, then sneers, lifting the mic once more. "One touch is all it'll take, old man. That's all your body can handle." The words echo in the hush, crueler than the earlier jokes. A few fans cheer the insult, But their voices are drowned under a deeper, heavier reaction. Boos, disapproval, the sound of a crowd feeling complicit in something it didn't intend to endorse. Chuck doesn't answer. He doesn't even blink at Cena's theatrics. Instead, in a movement that feels almost ritualistic, he kneels briefly, unties the laces of his boots, and slips them off. The canvas creaks under his bare soles as he rises. He takes 2 measured steps forward, planting himself squarely in the center of the ring, and shifts into a stance so clean, so precise, it belongs to a different era entirely. Karate. The crowd roars at the sight. Not just applause, but a visceral wave of recognition. Some stand immediately, shouting approval, while others fall silent, unsettled by the sudden gravity. On the screen above, the split image is brutal in its contrast. Cena, all spectacle and sweat, muscles taut with showmanship. Chuck, silent and still, body aligned in calm readiness, his gaze locked onto the man across from him. For the first time, Cena hesitates. It's brief, a flicker, but the cameras catch it. His smirk slips at the edges before he pastes it back on. He paces in a semicircle, jaw tight, trying to turn the crowd back in his favor by raising his arms, goading them with familiar chants. "You can't see me!" he shouts, hand across his face. But the reaction is fractured. Some cheer out of habit, others boo, while many simply watch the stillness of the man opposite him. Chuck hasn't spoken a word, yet the arena feels like a courtroom, the crowd a restless jury. Every camera angle frames the moment as a trial, every cheer or hiss a verdict waiting to be delivered. Cena breaks the silence with motion. He stomps his foot, shakes his head, then lunges forward, chest puffed, arms raised. He doesn't strike yet, but he's daring Chuck to react, to crack, to reveal weakness. Chuck doesn't flinch. His stance deepens, shoulders lowering slightly, the calm of a man who has stood in storms far greater than noise and taunts. The audience senses it. The first real clash isn't going to be fists on flesh. It's happening now, in the silence, in the refusal to blink first. Chuck's eyes never leave Cena's, and the intensity of the stare draws the crowd into it. Even the hecklers fall quiet, feeling the weight of the unspoken. The referee glances at both men, hand half raised, as though waiting for a cue. But he lowers it again. The cue isn't his to give. Cena finally exhales sharply, a snarl half hidden in the mic. "Fine. You want it the hard way? You'll get it." He slaps his chest, turning once more to the audience, desperate to whip them up into frenzy. He flexes, grins, points back at Chuck as though promising easy destruction. But every second he spends shouting only deepens the contrast. Chuck hasn't moved since taking his stance. The camera zooms close. His face is stone, eyes sharp, every muscle poised but not strained. He looks less like a man waiting for a fight than a man waiting for the inevitable. The noise builds to a breaking point. Fans stomp their feet, clap, shout. Some chant Cena's name, others call for Chuck. The clash of voices becomes thunder. The arena isn't just watching anymore. It's pressing, demanding, forcing the collision forward. Cena storms closer, arms wide, veins swelling in his neck, as he bellows another line meant to bury Chuck. "This isn't karate class, Grandpa. This is my house." The insult gets its cheer, but it's drowned almost immediately by a surge of boos, a tidal backlash rolling down from the rafters. The audience has turned courtroom again, half defending, half condemning, their noise pounding against the mat. And still Chuck says nothing. His only reply is the stillness of his stance, the bare soles gripping canvas, eyes locked on the man in front of him. His silence cuts sharper than words. The referee edges forward once more. The bell still hasn't rung, but the psychological fight has reached such a pitch that sound itself feels dangerous. A single wrong note could tip the whole arena into chaos. Cena snarls, pacing in tight circles now, trying to shake Chuck out of his composure. He feints forward, snapping his fists at the air, showing off speed and power. Each sharp crack of his punches echoes through the rafters, but Chuck doesn't blink. He doesn't twitch. He breathes, slow and steady, as if even oxygen is under his command. The audience holds on that stillness. The difference between them has become unbearable. Cena, loud, frantic, burning energy for approval. Chuck, quiet, patient, conserving, turning silence into a weapon. For the first time, Cena looks rattled. Not by words, not by contact, but by the realization that the show is slipping out of his control. And in the quiet pocket that follows, the crowd senses it too. The real fight hasn't even started. And already, one man is winning. The bell finally tolls, sharp and metallic. But it feels like a formality. The fight has already started long before metal struck metal. Cena wastes no time. He lunges forward, body low, arms pumping with the raw momentum of a man who trusts muscle more than timing. His weight slams against the mat with each stride. Chuck doesn't flinch. He doesn't even step back. His stance adjusts, hips shifting, feet barely gliding across canvas. Cena swings hard, a right hand meant to crash through the guard, but Chuck slides a fraction sideways. The fist cuts nothing but air. The sound of it rushing past is louder than expected, amplified by the silence of the crowd. Another swing, wild, left-handed, aggressive. Again Chuck slips it, shoulders tilting just enough for leather to slice the space where his head had been. He doesn't counter. He doesn't even raise his arms higher than necessary. He just lets Cena's strength burn itself in empty air. The crowd gasps collectively, then falls quiet again, every pair of eyes locked on the impossible calm in the older man's body. The difference is too stark. Cena, all noise and fire, hammering forward with brute strength. Chuck, still and patient, answering chaos with geometry. Cena growls, "Stand still," and drives his shoulder forward, aiming to crush Chuck into the corner. At the last second, Chuck pivots, bare feet whispering against canvas, and extends his arm. Not a punch, not even a strike, just a guiding redirection. Cena barrels past him, stumbling 2 steps before catching himself against the ropes. The image is shocking. The strongest man in the building sent sideways by almost nothing at all. The arena detonates. Half the crowd roars with delight, half with disbelief. The sound rises into a storm, whistling and stomping, signs waving, phones raised high. The camera cuts to faces in the front row, mouths wide, eyes round, some laughing in awe, others shaking their heads like they'd just seen a magic trick. Cena's face flushes crimson. His chest heaves, not from exhaustion but from fury. He slams both fists against the top rope, rattling the turnbuckle. For him, this isn't performance anymore. It's pride, slipping out of his grip. He storms back toward Chuck, faster, harder. Every step shakes the ring. He swings again, a heavy fist meant to end the night in one blow. Chuck pivots once more, minimal, just enough to make the punch skim the air. The older man doesn't retreat. He stays close, calm, present. Another punch, another slip, another miss. The pattern builds like a drumbeat. Noise meeting silence, strength meeting restraint. The crowd begins to sense the shift. The cheers turn into something else, a rhythm of disbelief layered with awe. Each miss becomes a spectacle. Each narrow escape feels like a verdict against brute force. Then it happens. Chuck moves not just to avoid, but to respond. Cena charges, lowering his head for a tackle. Chuck's hand shoots forward, palm flat against Cena's chest. No flourish, no wind-up, just precision and timing. The contact halts the bigger man's rush for half a second, long enough for Chuck to turn his hips and shove. Cena stumbles back 3 steps, nearly tripping over his own boots before catching himself. The crowd explodes. Hands fly into the air. Some fans roar laughter. Others scream his name. But the sound is unified now, an eruption of recognition that something real has broken through the pageantry. Cena bares his teeth, panting, humiliated. He points at Chuck, shaking his head furiously. "You think that means anything?" he shouts, voice ragged with rage. "Do that again, I dare you!" But the camera catches what the audience already feels. Cena's bravado is cracked. His eyes dart, looking for control he no longer has. The harder he pushes, the weaker he looks beside the man who hasn't raised his voice once. Chuck raises one hand, palm open, a gesture so understated it ripples through the arena. To half the crowd, it looks like mercy. To Cena, it looks like mockery. He slaps Chuck's hand away and charges. Wild now, swinging without rhythm, punches ragged and desperate. Chuck slips 1, 2, 3. Each miss feeds the silence between beats, until the only sounds are canvas creaks and the air tearing under fists that hit nothing. The audience feels it, the anger, the unraveling. Cena isn't fighting Chuck anymore. He's fighting himself. The referee glances nervously between them, tempted to intervene, but the crowd won't allow it. Their noise is too consuming, their energy feeding the storm. The arena has become less a venue than a courtroom, the verdict forming with every failed swing. Chuck doesn't gloat, he doesn't smirk. His eyes remain locked, sharp and calm, as if studying a storm through a window rather than standing in its path. His silence is cutting Cena to ribbons more effectively than any punch could. Another wild swing, another slip. The chant starts again. This time not fight, but something deeper. Chuck. Chuck! It builds in waves, rolling from the balcony to the floor. The sound is deafening. Cena swings harder, sweat flying off his brow, veins bulging. His punches miss by inches, then feet. The more he misses, the more the arena tilts against him. He's no longer the hero, no longer the showman. He's the one losing control. Chuck steps back just once, enough to create space. He lifts his hand again, palm steady, offering stillness in the middle of chaos. The crowd holds its breath. Cena snarls, refusing to see it as an invitation to stop. He sees it only as insult. With a roar, he charges once more, the anger in his body so large it leaves no room for precision. And in that split second, before impact, before consequence, the entire arena understands. The fight is already decided. Cena charges like a freight train, shoulder lowered, arms set for the throw he's delivered 1,000 times. He wants spectacle, domination, the kind of finish that rewrites a night. The crowd senses it and surges forward on its toes, breath locked, phones raised. Chuck doesn't resist. He gives ground just enough, weight soft in the knees, inviting Cena's momentum. For a split second, Cena feels the satisfaction of control. Hips set, rotation beginning. Then the floor betrays him. Chuck pivots, guides, redirects. One palm at the wrist, the other at the tricep. A shift of hips, barely visible. The throw reverses itself, the power folding in on its owner. Cena lifts from the mat, not in triumph but in shock, and crashes down hard. the sound thudding under the ring and rolling into the rafters. The arena freezes. The silence is violent. Then it breaks. People erupt all at once. Shouts, gasps, laughter, hands thrown skyward. Beer sprays into the lights. Faces on the big screen split between disbelief and ecstasy. It isn't victory the crowd feels, it's revelation. On the mat, Cena blinks at the ceiling. He's not broken, but something inside him is shaken. He plants a hand, pushes to rise, but his arms tremble. He tries again, pride forcing him up, and manages to stand on shaky legs. Chuck doesn't rush. He waits, bare feet planted, chest steady, eyes calm. The pause is louder than any strike. The referee takes a half step forward, then freezes, reading the room. Cena snarls and throws a desperate punch. Chuck meets it with a simple parry, guiding the fist aside, shifting his hand to Cena's sleeve. A twist, a turn, and Cena is on the mat again, not slammed, but set down. The gasp from the crowd feels different this time. Less violent, more awed. Chuck kneels, bringing himself level. His voice is low, but the microphone catches it clean. True strength is the ability to control yourself. The words hang in the air. For a moment, the arena doesn't cheer. It listens. The hush is heavy, filled with people realizing they've just heard the only explanation for what they've witnessed. Then the applause comes, rolling, unified, impossible to resist. Strangers hug. Parents lift children. Faces shine wet in the lights. Cena sits, elbows on his knees, eyes lowered. The fight is gone from him, replaced with something quieter, harder to admit. He doesn't speak. He doesn't need to. His silence says enough. Chuck rises, turns toward the ropes, and steps out without flourish. He doesn't raise his arms. He doesn't milk the ovation. He leaves the ring the same way he entered it. Calm, deliberate, unbothered. The ovation grows even louder because of it. On the way up the aisle, people reach over the barrier. Chuck doesn't slap hands, but lets his presence pass close, a brush of acknowledgement. At the tunnel, he pauses once, glances back at the ring, then at the crowd. No smile, no words, just a look that says, "Remember." Then he disappears into the dark. In the ring, Cena stays seated a while longer. Finally he stands, chest heaving, head bowed. No arms raised, no excuses. The audience, sensing the change, doesn't boo. It gives him space. A few clap softly, not for victory, but for humility. The night doesn't end like a fight. It ends like a lesson. The cameras linger on the empty ropes, the trembling canvas, the faces still processing what they saw. And the question left behind isn't who won. It's what matters more, the noise of strength or the silence of control.